Hello everyone, friends. My name is Katya Sergeyenko and I am an astrologer. Today we're going to talk about Venus moving into the sign of Libra. This is a transit that will affect all of us from October 14th to November 7th. This is a time when it's very important for all of us to restore balance, right? Balance everywhere, in relationships, in the body, first and foremost, in finances, and in how we treat ourselves in general. When Venus enters Libra, it's like she's returning to her own sign as if she's coming home. But it's not about the fact that she feels good in this sign, and now we'll suddenly have a flow of abundance, finances, and everything will be great in relationships. It's not quite about that. It's about the fact that right now the topic of energy is coming up in general. Energy exchange, the energy of equilibrium, the energy of balance. Libra is not about trying to please everyone. By the way, yes, there's also this idea that Libra is a sign of balance, the most compromising sign, all about pleasing everyone and so on. No, it's about making sure that everything between me and other people is honest, harmonious, and based on love. What does harmonious mean exactly? When you don't disrupt your own energetic balance, when you give something and you also receive, right? That's what this is about. Yes, this will show up in relationships, meaning questions will arise about where someone is overstepping boundaries, where someone is not giving enough, or where someone is giving too much, or what people are actually agreeing to, even when it comes to money, right? What do you want? In other words, maybe you want more than you actually put in, right? So things like this can come up in the body as well. The body will signal to us where, in which area the balance is disturbed. As we know, the body is pure psychosomatics. So when a certain part of the body hurts, it means that there is stagnation with a certain kind of energy, right? Well, for example, I don't know, if during this period your kidneys start acting up, if you have some issue with your kidneys, that's about relationships. If, for example, your liver starts to bother you, that's about emotions like anger or irritation that you are suppressing. So if your throat starts to hurt, for instance, it means you're not saying something to someone. So it's very important to track this psychosomatic specifically, what our Venus will be showing us during this period, this month. And the sign of Libra is not about I do everything for you and only for you. You know, like when someone says it's a kind of complaint, like I've done everything for you, I've spent my whole life on you, and what have you done for me, right? It's not about that kind of balance. It's not about that kind of equilibrium. It's not about only me being important or only me putting in the effort while you do nothing. No, it's about a living, natural balance when we genuinely give something, you see? When we genuinely give something and we don't expect that in return, well, we'll get back much more than we gave. And it's about honestly sharing what you have. And you understand that this person is exactly the one you're not trying to please, not trying to prove anything to, but you simply do it out of love from a place of just being able to share it. When we share like this, not from a place of lack, not from the mindset of I'm doing you a favor now, providing you with some service, and then you'll owe me later, you'll owe me afterwards, right? No, Venus is not about that. These are the kinds of topics that will come up for us, about this kind of balance, where you give from a place of lack, where you expect something in return, where you do nothing but want others to give to you. Yes, so that's what it's going to be like. Well, interesting things, of course, because all of this is the theme of Venus, you see? So Venus in Libra, right? You can often hear interpretations of this transit saying that now everything in relationships will become harmonious, that now you'll feel like you're riding a wave of financial luck. Yes, everything will be fine. That all sounds wonderful. If that's really what's happening in your relationships right now, that's great, isn't it? Right? But the sign of Libra itself, I'm always in favor of, sincerity, and of talking about real things, you see? Not romanticizing what doesn't need to be romanticized. Libra is a very romanticized sign, or on the other hand, people think Libras are indecisive. So you can read about this sign that they're indecisive, that they're always doubting themselves. No, they're just assessing the situation. Saturn is exalted in Libra. There's a very, very down-to-earth attitude toward everything there. You need to think things through. You need to understand, why am I doing this right now? What's the purpose? Libra is a very mutually beneficial sign. Whenever Libra makes a decision, they always understand what benefit they're putting in and what benefit they'll get out of it. That's why they can really weigh things for a long time. But that's not indecisiveness, you see? Libra is the sign where the sun is in exile. The sun is exiled. It falls in Aquarius and Libra, which is considered a weak position. But it's not weak at all, right? These are actually very decisive people. It's just that when they decide on something, they always understand why they're doing it. And why am I telling you all this? So that we can understand what kind of energy we're dealing with. So now there might be, some significant complaints from other people who will genuinely say things like, where is your substantial part that you truly invested in me, huh? Or like, I completely quit my secure job for you. I even had children specifically for you, and so on, right? This situation could lead to considerable emotional distress and complex interpersonal challenges. This won't just show up between partners, it's actually between people in general, you see? There might be some relationship clarifications happening now, especially since we currently have a conjunction of Mercury, Mars, or Lilith in the sky. Something is in the air, in Scorpio, so the next 2 weeks are going to be very tense. All of this will be coming out in full force, yes. I actually recorded a separate video on this topic about Mars and Scorpio. Listen, but the very fact is that right now a lot of hidden pitfalls and grievances may come to light, things that no one even suspected. When you're in a relationship, it seems like everything is honest, everything is sincere. People are just doing things for you, just helping you out. And now suddenly all these cool, interesting stories will start to surface. Like, actually, I didn't do all that for you just because, actually, I'm expecting something in return from you, right? So it might happen that during this period you'll want to come to an agreement with someone, you'll want to make some kind of serious arrangement with someone. It's a good time for signing agreements, signing contracts, when you realize that if you're starting to interact with someone, you want to make sure it's not just all talk, right? That is, Libra is a very, very rational sign. In fact, it's the only truly artificial sign of the zodiac, by the way. And that's also important to understand, right? What I mean by artificial here is, artificial means without a soul, Not that Libras are soulless, but rather that there's always a very, very rational benefit involved. Yes, a clear division, mine, yours, That is, so that everything is equal, so there aren't any imbalances. And now, this month, as Venus moves through Libra, this will be the general background that we can all feel and notice. And this is exactly about where you'll be searching for that balance, right? You'll be aware, like, if I do this now, what will I get out of it, really? Is it even worth it for me to make an effort to get involved for someone, to give them some help? What will I get in return, right? Or is it worth it for me to overwork, to take on a bunch of responsibilities at work? Will I get any resources in return, right? Or for example, if you've been working hard for a long time without any results, you might now be asking yourself, where is that result? Why isn't it there, right? So these are the kinds of issues. In other words, these topics will come up sharply, yes. And regarding psychosomatics, that's also an interesting point. So pay attention to what exactly your body will be showing you. It's like a beacon, something you really need to pay attention to. So which area of your life right now is the most painful? The one you need to focus on. The crucial point to understand is, especially since Libra is inherently the astrological sign of deep partnership, the very sign that is fundamentally responsible for all types of significant relationships, isn't that right? So, if the reproductive system, the kidneys, or anything related to filtration in the body is aggravated, it means that somewhere you have an unhealthy filter specifically affecting this kind of exchange. And if everything related to the throat is aggravated, higher up here, then that's our financial aspect. So if it's the skin, for example, then overall it's a problem with Venus. For instance, if you suddenly break out badly right now or have some unpleasant issue specifically with your skin, not just in one particular area of the body, but something like an allergy appears or you just get covered in pimples. This means we need to thoroughly address both relationship issues and financial matters. So this is something we need to pay attention to. There's also another nuance here. When Venus transitioned, so to speak, into the new sign of Libra, when that happened on the 14th, a Venus-Neptune opposition formed in the sky. What does this mean? There's an opposition with Neptune and a couple of other aspects, but for now, let's focus on the opposition with Neptune. So, Neptune is the planet of idealization, it's the planet of fog. What does this mean? An opposition always works in the context of excess, an excess of energy. Do you know how this can manifest? For example, if you've fallen in love with someone right now, you might feel like this person is, you might simply be idealizing them. In other words, they might be showing up in a way and you might be seeing them as someone they actually are not. That's an interesting point too, right? It's kind of like that rose-colored glasses effect, In general, when it comes to people, in principle, that was just a vivid example I gave. If you've suddenly fallen in love right now, we always have such intense feelings at the beginning when we fall in love. But this little phase might fade away after the 25th, let's say. You might realize that in fact things are a bit different from how they seem to you, right? That's why any relationships with people right now need to be evaluated very rationally. We should focus not so much on words or the overall impression or energy a person gives off, but specifically on the actions that person takes. And again, this doesn't just apply to romantic relationships, it concerns absolutely everyone. So we might encounter this situation right now, this particular moment, yes. You might feel like shutting yourself off from people. You know, when you either pour out everything you have openly, yes, and start sharing everything with everyone. Suddenly, you might feel like even though you always used to keep things to yourself, now you really want to let it all out. That can be normal too. In fact, on the contrary, it's important to talk about it. So if you feel like you're being overwhelmed emotionally, you need to talk. It's better to talk than to keep silent, yes. Because if you do the opposite, if you bottle it all up inside, close yourself off emotionally and say, I don't want to, just leave me alone, don't touch me at all, right? In other words, if you shut yourself off from people, it will be worse than if you talk it out. Because opposition is treated precisely in this way. Specifically with Neptune, yes, by talking through and writing out all your emotional issues in relationships, right? At the same time, Venus is making a trine to Uranus. This is about a breath of fresh air in relationships. This is about, on the one hand, yes, it's about renewal and the desire to refresh something. There might be a sense of freshness, a desire for something new, a new space, or to have a different kind of conversation. In general, some new interests may arise, like when you suddenly want to communicate more, to show up more with someone. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is if you feel like distancing yourself a bit from the person, for example, if they physically leave and you end up being apart from each other. That's another way it can manifest. Or it might genuinely be the case that you feel a strong inclination to distance yourself, perhaps just a little bit, a subtle separation, like you might want to share less of your thoughts, feelings, or experiences with others, right? This feeling, this desire for a bit more personal space and privacy is also perfectly normal and entirely understandable in many situations. And there's another aspect, this is all happening at the same time, which is the trine to Pluto. Pluto is all about depth, passion, the desire for control, strong attraction. It's about, wanting to distance yourself and get closer at the same time, all of that, with swirling emotions, passion, and everything that comes with it. The only thing is, against the dramatic backdrop of this significant conjunction in Scorpio of Mercury with Mars and Lilith, which of course can certainly add some truly interesting and intriguing nuances to all these intense passions and emotional energies. But you shouldn't go overboard, If you feel the urge to control or dig into someone, be careful so that you don't end up doing something unnecessary and then regretting it later. But overall, this is about making a strong impression and feeling a powerful attraction to someone. So right now, you might feel a very strong pull towards someone, right? And at the same time, you might be idealizing them. So here you really need to maintain that fine line, that balance as much as possible. Venus is also about feelings and your relationship with yourself. So when Venus is in Libra, it's not just about looking beautiful, and you will want to look beautiful, but about feeling beautiful as well. It's that moment when I transform visually, but also when I feel inside that I love myself, that I am valuable, that I am worthy of being loved just for who I am. These kinds of moments can really come up, and right now you might feel like diving more into aesthetic topics, like starting to wear makeup, dressing beautifully, and taking better care of your body. So all of this is absolutely normal. If you feel that your body is exhausted, tired, lacking energy, don't force yourself with intense workouts or strict diets. Right now, on the contrary, you need things like massages, pleasant scents, different fabrics, tactile sensations, movement, dancing. In other words, everything for the soul. Anything that brings you physical pleasure is especially important right now. It's important to restore that inner harmonious state within yourself. As for money, yes, we were talking about relationships, but of course, finances are also a topic for us, right? This means that this opposition with Neptune can create some confusion regarding money, your income, especially in any kind of partnership dealings with someone else. That is, anything involving another person. So right now, you need to understand that any financial transactions may not be entirely honest. If you're making any agreements, you need to be very specific, put everything in writing, make a contract, and so on. Or, for example, if your money is being delayed, you should understand that this could really turn into a murky situation, right? This will pass after the 25th. So after that, the whole situation with money can be resolved. But right now, you shouldn't make any big emotional purchases or sign contracts based on emotions, like when you feel, I really want to work with this person, I need to do it right away. No, first you need to think everything through rationally. Evaluate everything, and remember that Neptune clouds relationships with other people. So right now, you might be seeing the other person not as they really are. From October 30th to November 7th, Venus will be in a square aspect to Jupiter. This is an inherent aspect of lack when you consistently want more, something bigger, something better, when you might genuinely feel like something essential is missing, that you truly don't have quite enough of something important. This is no longer an illusion. This is really about the universe showing you that it's time to expand, to try new things, to experience new tastes, to go somewhere new, to visit a new place, to buy yourself some designer clothes, for example, right? That is to try something with a person, to build a relationship in a different way, maybe to try meeting someone new, to communicate in a foreign language, for example. So this is a period that will broaden your social circle. So if you get the chance, it's great if you meet someone new during this period, and indeed during this time Jupiter can bring new acquaintances. For example, if you visit a place that's new and unfamiliar to you, that's exactly where you might meet someone. So as you can see, this transit is much deeper than just a harmonious period in relationships or finances. In reality, everything is a bit more profound, right? Everything is a bit. After all, our psyche is structured in such a way that it can present us with various situations for us to work through. And when Venus, for example, the planet that governs relationships and money, changes signs, we inevitably start to immerse ourselves in these topics, you see? Exactly. Or we start to sort things out with friends whose lives are being affected by these themes, or these issues come up for us personally. So the background will still be felt, it will definitely be felt, and you need to be prepared for these moments of balance to come up. In other words, how to love without losing yourself, without sacrificing yourself as well, right? So when you feel your own self-worth, when you don't avoid the truth, don't avoid honest conversations with the other person, and most importantly, don't avoid yourself in these relationships. If you feel that right now there is an imbalance in some area of your life, that something is off somewhere, then this is actually a great time to establish that inner balance, to find that balance, to stabilize yourself, and most importantly, to resolve all issues not through emotions, but specifically through dialogue, by simply saying directly what you think. This is very important right now. I hope this video was helpful for you. I would really appreciate a like and a subscription to my channel.